Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 and Dakota Nations territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. My name is Brent McIntyre and I'll be chairing the meeting today. The secretary to the board is Cara Belshaw and the assessor is Victoria Ho. The other board members to my left is Laurie Davidson and to her left is Harvey Dyer. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 and Dakota Nations territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis. My name is Brent McIntyre and I'll be chairing the meeting today. To the participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along on the City of Winnipeg's Board of Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing has concluded, you can leave the meeting. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussions to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decisions by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. Thank you. The first property on the docket is 216 McDermott. Cara, if I can ask you to...
Yes. Madam Assessor, for the record, please state your name.
Victoria Ho.
And do you affirm the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, for the record, can you please state your name?
Ardo Famikin.
And do you affirm the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
We do have a couple of preliminary issues. First of all, Mr. Famikin, I'd like to confirm that you have appealed the liability to taxation?
Yes.
And the amount of assessed value?
The amount of assessed value as well, yeah.
Okay. And Victoria, you also have a preliminary issue?
The preliminary issue is for non-compliance. In the interest of fairness and consistency, we'll be seeking penalty of non-compliance for this property that did not provide information in accordance to Section 16(1)(c) of the Municipal Assessment Act and demand for information. As you can see in my brief on page 13, we have made...
if you can read the roll number into the record.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
So file number 21-152. Roll numbers 13060873000. The address is 216 McDermott Avenue. And so, yeah, in regarding to, we're seeking non-compliance, and if you see on page 13 of my brief, there we have a received signature and the mail and the tracking for the request for information for the mailing envelope. It was signed by Eduardo Ganikin. I'm not too sure if that was a mistake in the from Canada Post in the naming, or maybe someone else that may have received it. I'm not sure, but according to our system, there has been no changes to the mailing address.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Famkin, do you have any questions of the assessor?
No. What was the mailing address that was sent to?
I believe it's on Adsum Road. On Adsum.
Okay, yeah, there was a change to the mailing address. It's no longer on Adsum.
You're no longer on Adsum. Please update your mailing address. That way we could make sure that we can update your the mailing for our request for information for income and expenses. When did you move out from Adsum?
3 years ago.
Okay, so this mailing was back for June 8th of 2018. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take a 5-minute recess and deliberate.
Question, please.
Sure. Oh, one more question.
I have a question of the applicant. So on page 13, you see in the assessor's brief there's a signature. It says Canada Post. Do you recognize that signature?
Where would I see this?
If you look at the assessor's brief, page 13, there's a Canada Post a confirmation. It says Canada Post on it. There's a signature above it.
Not sure where to see the assessor's brief.
Page 13, you have the assessor's brief.
Sorry, I don't know how to use the system. Where would I see the brief?
It's on page 13 of the assessor's brief.
Page 13 of the assessor's brief. And that should be in this screen, or?
No.
It was emailed to you after the exchange date. My colleague Brittany sent it to you.
Brittany. Well, I have you here, Victoria. Brittany. Don't have anything from
It was
Brittany.
sent on October 1st at 8:51 a.m.
Oh. Okay, page 13.
The top of the page says CPC tracking report.
It's similar to my signature, but it's not my signature. So it could be somebody at that house that maybe have signed it. I do own that house. Well, my family does still. And it's a rental house. So maybe the tenant just signed on our behalf.
Harvey, anything else?
You're saying it's similar to your signature?
It's similar. It has an E in the front, and that's pretty much it. But that's not my signature.
And does your tenant sign like that?
I don't think. No.
Okay, thank you.
Lori?
No questions from me.
I have just one question related to page 13. At the top, you see the tracking details.
Okay.
On the same page, right? And then it says signatory name Eduardo Canisten.
Huh?
Do you know that person?
No, that name is incorrect. My name is Eduardo with a W and Famikin. Famakin.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess.
Okay, Mr. Chair, we're live.
We'll resume the meeting. The board has considered the evidence presented, and we have granted the assessor's request that the burden of proof be placed on the applicant for non-cooperation in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. Now, what that means is, Mr. Famakin, we will hear your evidence first, and the onus is on you. You understand that? Can you hear me?
He can hear you.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, the other thing we would like clarification on is you did check off liability to taxation. Do you have any evidence, and I haven't looked at your brief yet, to support the fact that you don't think you're responsible to pay property taxes?
Well, I do think that I should be paying property taxes, but to the extent that you guys evaluated it to, and for extenuous circumstances, I guess, during the COVID period, I believe the assessment is exaggerated.
So that's really your issue today, not really whether or not you should pay some or all of the taxes, but whether or not the assessed value is correct.
Yeah, like I from what I've noticed is that the neighboring buildings, which are much larger and have many.
Yeah, you can get into that in your evidence.
Okay.
So you believe you're responsible to pay property taxes, I guess is my question.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now you can proceed with your evidence.
Okay.
Excuse me, one more thing. Mr. Famakin, upon reviewing Mr. Famakin's evidence, there's some sensitive financial information that's been submitted. I don't know, I'm not too sure how Mr. Famakin wants to proceed with the submission of the evidence, since it will be publicly published on record.
Yeah, if we can, I guess, hear the evidence today and the sensitive financial information be stricken from public record afterwards, is that possible?
Well, it's part of the evidence, so we will look at it today, and
Or he can just speak to it verbally and we can retract those pages in question.
we can retract it, so we can.
Yeah, he can ask for it to be retracted, and then we can. Well, if you look at it, it's part of public record.
Which part of your evidence do you want retracted?
It would be the Bank of Montreal bank financial statements.
You sent a brief that is 53 pages. Can you identify which pages you're looking to strike?
Okay, that would be two, three, 6. It would be from page 14 to page 26.
Okay. Any others?
And it would also strike the insurance. The page number 8.
Okay, so I will delete pages 14 through 26 inclusive and page 8 from your brief. And you can speak to it verbally if you wish to share the information.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you can continue with the rest of your presentation.
Okay, so in regards to the building, let's see here. So I'm gonna speak to the area, I guess. So in the recent years, the building had public parking directly in front of it. In recent years, it's been deleted and transformed into a bike lane, and the existing parking that remained, the cost of it shot up quite significantly and has been reduced. So there's no parking in the area for the either commercial or residential tenants. The area is consistently plagued by crime. This building's been vandalized multiple times every year. And also for the area, I've noticed that the neighboring buildings, which are quite larger, they rise 4 to 5 stories. They take up a little more land space. I'm not sure how it's assessed, but their assessments are significantly lower. If you were to look at,
just to stop you there, we don't compare assessments.
Okay. And so also insurance rates for that area have, up until last year, have just about tripled. And this year, they haven't even given me a number of how much it's going to be, and it's due in 2 weeks. And they're talking about it doubling from last year, which was tripled from before. So just because of I guess, the area of the liability, the COVID, I'm not sure.
Well, and these assessments are based on a valuation date of April 1st, 2018.
Okay.
So it's not taking into account what COVID is doing.
Okay. 2018. Okay. Yeah. So just to attest to that is the cost of operating the business or the building is, since 2011 is when I've been operating this building, has risen significantly every year. The revenues of the building have not increased despite significant upgrades that I've done to the building. The only thing that it's done is increased my costs. Our revenues have not increased. I turned one space into a restaurant to lure business to the area. I've renovated, this building's a character building. I renovated the upper floors to ultra modern apartment suites, which I find very difficult to even keep a tenant due to the fact that there's no parking and amenities are difficult to reach in the area. There I have some more information here. And yeah, it's very difficult to keep a main floor tenant, the restaurant, due to the fact there's no parking. Insurance values are significant cost to them as well. Insurance to them is over $15,000 a year. Before, when we started, it was $2,000-3,000 a year. And everything hasn't just increased in value. The water bills have, there's sewer charges now, which is doubling it essentially.
So is there any evidence in your brief that provide support for what you think the assessed value is?
I submitted on page 4 to 7 as just a briefing of what the building, I feel about the building and how its revenues and at max if there's no vacancy. And so yeah, the assessed value of 900,000 plus, and I think is excessive. I think the building, I've received offers to purchase on the building. It's like anywhere from 400,000 to 700,000, and nobody has even come through with those. So the market is spoken at a max of 700,000. And I've done significant renovations to the place, and I still at that price I wouldn't even get my money back. So that's the number I'm going to go with.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, Victoria, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Harvey?
I don't have any questions.
Lori?
No.
And I have no questions. So Victoria, you can proceed.
All right. Thank you. Would you like me to reread the roll number, or I can just continue about the discussion
No, it's on the
property? Okay. So for the 2022 assessed value, we have the overall value at 949,000 under dispute. A little bit about the property. It is currently a commercial multi-use property for its parcel use. The main floor is a restaurant, and the upper 2 floors are apartment suites that have been renovated back in between 2017 and final completion date, inspection date was in 2019. Permit value was 400,000. We updated the property record effective January 1st, 2020. And it is a character zone property. As you can see, we have some subject sales history, purchased back in, I guess, October 2008 for 405,000. I have some rent comparables on page 3 of restaurants in the downtown area, going between $14 to $18 a square foot. And then I have some multifamily rent comparables in comparison of the apartment suites upstairs of in a similar area in the Exchange District that are older character buildings that have been most likely been renovated, and the average monthly rent is going around $1,200 a month. I have on page 5 the overall income stream for the restaurant to develop the valuation for the restaurant. We have the rent price per square foot at $13.98, and we have a substandard basement at $2.78 for overall potential rent of $47,429. With a 2% for 3% vacancy loss and 2% expenses, and $750 per square foot shortfall. We have an overall capitalization rate of 7.5 for the estimated value of $586,000 for the restaurant portion. On page 6, we have the apartment portion. For the overall potential gross income of 29,356, vacancy loss of 3%, expenses for roughly at 44%, overall capitalization at 4.4%, and we have an estimated value of 363,000 rounded. And then you can see on page 7 the overall income summary for the two income streams, the restaurant and the apartment. Page 8, you can see that there is the commercial capitalization rates for retail and multifamily. We have City of Winnipeg, Studies, Colliers, and CBRE, and Cushman Wakefield. The ranges are going between 5.4 to 7% to 7. For multifamily is quite lower, which is 4 to 5.57 or 6. Sorry. We have on page 9 some Municipal Assessment Act excerpts, and on page 10 to page 12 we have some exterior photos of the subject property. And then that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Famican, any questions of the assessor?
No question.
No questions? Harvey?
No questions.
Lori?
I just have basically one question. Is all the numbers in the brief, are they all modeled? And was the premises inspected recently?
They were all the premises are all modeled. I've only done an exterior inspection. As for an interior inspection, the reassessment was done by another assessor, so I'm not too sure if they were able to do an interior.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and I have no questions. So that concludes this matter. Thank you very much, Mr. Famican, and you'll receive our order in due course.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hi, Mr. Jim. You'll just have to unmute your microphone. So just before we start with this item, I'll just affirm your testimony today.
Yes.
For the record, can you please state your name?
아빠 이름 대익주긴 엄마 이름
스크래어 초이.
Sorry, you know what? I'm going to do you guys one at a time. All three of you plan to speak today?
Yeah. No. Just myself.
Okay. Then
But
I will just... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be the main speaker, but I won't be only getting their opinions, but I'll be the only speaker.
Okay, so in that case, I will just affirm your testimony.
For sure.
So can you please state your name, please?
Yeah, it's Gim.
And do you affirm the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay. If there comes a time where either of them are also speaking, we will have to affirm them as well.
For sure.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to just do them or?
Thank you. There's a preliminary issue for non-cooperation. Victoria, if you want to read in the address and roll number. And
Yes. File number is 21-99. Roll number is 060705177. Address is 237 Bertrand Street. The overall assessment under dispute is $407,000. In matters of non-cooperation, I have a a signed registered letter, 2 signed registered mail on page 13 and 15, signed by Sukray Choi. And there was no response for the income and mailer, income and expense mailer. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gim, do you have any questions of the assessor?
Yes. We do acknowledge the fact that we received the mail regarding the questionnaire. However, because our property was not rented out or was not a rental property, neither the commercial side or the residential side, we were of the opinion that it was not applicable that we send a response because we just have no information on rental income or expense. And that was the opinion that we got when we visited Main Street years ago. 언제인지 기억 안 나죠, Main Street. It's been quite a while, but we went to Main Street, and because we weren't a rental property, we were told that we did not have to submit the questionnaire.
Okay. You could also respond back to the income and mailer response saying owner occupied across it, for future reference.
For sure. We apologize for that.
Okay, any other comments?
No, that's it. That's it for us regarding the questionnaire.
Harvey?
The assessor, on the basis of the explanation just given, is the city still seeking non-cooperation?
Pardon, Mr. Dunn, can you repeat that again?
I'm saying based on the evidence that is heard from the applicant, is the city still seeking non-cooperation on this matter?
Yes, we are.
Lori?
I have no questions, thank you.
And I have no questions, so we'll take another 5 minute break.
Okay, Mr. Chair, we're live.
Thank you. We'll resume the meeting, and we have considered the assessor's request that the burden of proof be placed on the applicant for non-cooperation, and we have denied that request. Thank you.
No, this classification is under, so I think he has to go first anyway.
So Victoria, you can proceed with your evidence.
Yes, sir. Okay, so the parcel use code for this property is a commercial multi-use. So there is a apartment suites and a commercial grocery store on the main floor. It is on zone.
Victoria, can I just stop you there? I just noticed classification is under appeal.
Oh, sorry.
So we'll have to have Mr. Gim present his evidence.
If he wishes to pursue that.
If he wishes to proceed first. Mr. Gim?
Unmute yourself.
Apologies. Yeah, we are okay with that.
So do you want to talk about classification?
Yes and no, but this was more like an attempt to try to speak with the change of the property type, but I'm not sure if it's even applicable as our building was commercially built. However, just the fact that we don't use it as a commercial property anymore, we just are uneducated in this fact, whether it's even possible that we can change everything to a residential.
So it's 100% residential?
Yes, as if the downstairs, the old grocery store classifies as a storage or a basement. Yes. We are occupying it as a residential property at the moment at 100%, and we have no intentions to rent it out as a commercial property anymore or operate as a commercial property anymore.
Okay.
our main goal is the reduction of property tax assessment. Ultimately, that is our goal today.
So you don't want to talk about classification, really?
Is it applicable? Is it even possible to apply for that, given how our building is built?
Well, I think you could talk to the assessment department as, aside from that. And
Yes.
it may require an inspection on their part. I don't know.
Gotcha. So we'll drop the property type. We will only talk about the decrease or deduction of the property tax assessment value.
So you're dropping the classification here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Apologies for the confusion.
That's okay. So we'll hear from Victoria first. And you can continue, Victoria.
All right. Okay, so on page 2, we have a registered sale back in July 2003 for $75,000. On page 3, I have some rent comparables of main floor commercially used, not exactly for groceries, but their retail use on main floor, small main floor in the area, ranging between $10.52 to $19 a square foot. On the next page, on page 4, I have some subject rent comparables for the multifamily portion, ranging between $578 to $778 a month. We have 2 income streams. So for the apartment on page 5, we have 2 suite counts for a potential gross income at $14,486, vacancy loss of 1.8%, expenses at almost 57%, the overall capitalization rate at 4.6%, with an estimated value, rounded value of $133,000. For the retail portion, we have the income overall potential rent as $22,608, with a vacancy loss of 6%, expenses at 2%, shortfall of $6.5 a square foot, overall capitalization rate of 7.4%, for an overall estimated value of $274,000. And you can see on page 7 the overall income value summary. Page 8, again, we have the overall summary of capitalization studies. There's office, industrial, retail, multifamily, and hotels. But for our particular case, we're looking at retail and multifamily. They're all ranging from City of Winnipeg, Colliers, CBRE, Cushman and Wakefield. For retail, ranging between 5.4 to 7.5 for capitalization rates. Multifamily ranging between 4 to 7.3 for the capitalization rates. An excerpt of the Municipal Assessment Act on page 9. Page 10, 11, and 12 is an overall exterior photo view of the subject property. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gim, any questions of the assessor?
Yes, we don't think the comparable should apply, or for the better word, should not be compared as applicable or considered applicable as comparables, because the condition of our building is just simply not rentable. You can see that when you see our evidence from pages 1 to 7, the condition of the building is not such that it's rentable. So the potential rent value should not be compared to the buildings surrounding our neighborhood or our building.
Okay.
And that's our opinion. Yeah,
So
it shouldn't be
what's
less
the
value.
question there?
I'm sorry.
What's the question there?
Oh, So do you think the comparables should still be considered as comparables here in the case that you provided?
Assuming that the property was properly maintained and it's going to be rent. This is assuming that the property can be rented out at market value. Then these rent comparables are just examples of what sort of rents the units could attain to develop that way to support the income valuation for your property.
Gotcha.
Any more questions?
No, that's it for the comparable questions. Yeah.
Harvey, any questions?
I have no questions.
Laura?
I have none either, thanks.
I have one question. There's an age variant, a significant age variant on the building. And how long has that been there?
I am not sure of the age variant, how long it's been there.
And the pictures that you've taken on page 11 or that you've submitted on page 11, when were they taken?
These are pictures from Google Maps. I believe they're from back in 2018. The owner had told me that the grocery has been vacated back in 2019.
And thank you. That's my only questions. Mr. Gim, you can proceed with your presentation.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so pages 1 to 7 just briefly show you the current status of the building itself. As you can see, 1-1 that used to be the main store, we obviously don't use it as a store anymore, and the conditions of it, like the ceiling and the flooring, it's just not suitable for rent or operation for now. And 1-2 is just zooming on the ceiling, the condition of the ceiling. As you can see, there's some leaks coming from the roof, and there's just water whenever it rains. And the page 3, continuation of 1-1, also highlights that same fact. And also 1-3 is the storage itself. You can see all the repair work we've done because there has been some quite a few leaks over the past. And 1-4 also just that's our walk-in coolers / storage. It's just not capable. We're not capable of operating a store in this current building. 1-5 is the basement, and that's the compressor and just the overall status of the basement. Also, page 7, that's the other part of the basement where all the electric, the lines are at, and it just highlights in totality that's the condition of the building. And we thought, due to the conditions, the value of the property would not be $400,000 or $407,000, and so we tried to sell this building. We've tried ever since the owners closed the business down, and we just couldn't because we had first 2 years we tried to sell it as a business, and we weren't successful. We did not have any offer, not a single offer, and we were offering around $429,000 at the time, and that was the opinion of the real estate agent that we hired back then. And $429,000, we did not have a single interest because of the condition of the building. They looked at the basement, they looked at the condition of the storage, the store itself. We did not hide anything, obviously, and we did not have any interested buyers per se. We try to sell the building as a compact package, or we try to rent or try to lease the property, but we did not have any luck. It was the owner's wishes to get rid of the building and move into an apartment, downsize as a newly senior citizen. But that was not successful. We tried also sell it to developers around the area, that because our neighborhood, St. Boniface, the old St. Boniface, is being redeveloped everywhere. Condos, townhouses being built everywhere. So we got a second real estate agent's opinion that we have the best scenario for us to get rid of this building is to sell it as a development, or just to tear the building down and build a new property. However, initially we had many interests. We had offers ranging from $400,000 to $430,000. There were competition. We accepted the highest bid. However, if you see on page 8 of our evidence, there has been a sewer line issue that the city came when the buyers, or the potential buyers, were trying to do their due diligence, that is just not capable of supporting a 6-door unit, which is the only way it justifies the price at $400,000. And because it can only support a 4-unit system, or it needs to have a huge construction on the sewer line development, that we just can't justify a $400,000 price. And if you see 2-2, it's my conversation with the real estate agent that we hired at the time, Mr. Tom Snowden. If you see there on the last line, it says this offer should be considered as a far higher than the $275,000 offered from the last buyer we had an agreement with. So this buyer that he's talking about is a buyer that offered for $410,000, I believe, at the time. Because the sewer issue came up, they reduced their offer to $275,000, and they told us leave it or take it. And he's talking about an offer of $340,000, a potential offer, but that interested buyer did not actually submit an offer for $340,000. So the $275,000 offer is the actual offer that we last had, and we didn't get rid of it because due to the skyrocketing increase of housing market in Winnipeg or Manitoba or in Canada in general, we just can't afford a housing with a $275,000 sale. So before we go on to page 10 of our evidence, I just want to acknowledge the fact that personal income has no relevance and has no place in determining property tax values. However, just please understand the submission as an effort of a new senior couple that's worked hard for 20 years in a new country for 14 to 16 hours a day, with only Christmas and New Year's being their only days off. They were only taking 2 days off in a year when they were operating a store. They just had to close their business in 2019, 2 years ago, due to reduced income. They were making combined income of approximately $35,000 for the two of them, for working 16 hours a day, 14 to 16 hours a day. And going on to page 10 of our submission, their income situation post closure of their business is outlined there. So one co-owner, my father, makes $15,000, $15,650 a year.
And you know what, Mr. Gim, we really can't consider the income.
Yes. I'm just
because it's really not income from the property.
We do acknowledge that. And I was just saying that with the income they have currently, a property tax amount of $8,000 is just not sustainable. That was a point I was trying to make. But we do acknowledge that personal income has no place in determining the property tax values. And that concludes our submission. Oh, just one more, sorry. Now, the page 12, 4-1 can be off the evidence, as we're not applying for a reclassification of the property. So the insurance part can be taken off our submission, and that concludes our submission.
So you want to remove the last page of your submission?
Yes, please. That was solely for reclassification of the property.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it for us.
Victoria, do you have any questions?
Yes. Regarding the offer and sale for $275,000, that offer was back in this year in 2021.
Yes, if you can see page 9, the date has a 2021. I think that's February the 1st. I think the offer is 275,000. Was sometime in January this year.
Is that for as an offer to redevelop the site? And
Yes, so just buy the whole property from us. Yes.
okay, and so that would be a sale for, as it would be for land value.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But the building obviously has no potential of sale or potential to rent, as you can see. It literally has no value, in our opinion.
Okay. Okay. And do you know how much it would cost to remediate the building?
The foundation is our big concern.
Okay.
Opinion we got. I only invited the construction of the guy, but he was of the opinion that it would cost upwards of $150,000 to $250,000, and it was just simply not worth it to repair the foundation. And obviously, that's just the foundation alone.
Okay, no more questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Harvey?
Okay, Mr. Applicant, I acknowledge that it seems that the condition of the building is pretty bad. Do you have any knowledge of what land values are? I notice the bonus is.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Any idea what the land value is? If the building wasn't there.
The land value?
Yeah.
Land value, sorry, I'm just not, sorry, apologies, I'm just not understanding.
It's a vacant lot. Do you have any knowledge of what that might be worth?
Oh, the vacant lot. It's not a vacant lot. If it's a vacant lot.
If it were.
Oh, if it were a vacant lot, I'd say whatever the offer was. Actually, if it did not have a building, the offer would have been higher because they have to take out the demolition costs. But if it was vacant, I guess $275,000 is the best shot we can ever get at the moment.
Thank you.
Lori?
I have no questions, thank you.
Are the suites upstairs currently rented?
No, we are living in there because we can't afford to go into an apartment with the current income.
Okay, thank you. That's my only question. And that concludes this matter. Thank you very much.
I just have one point of clarification. Did you
Yeah.
want the last 3 pages of your brief stricken from the record?
Just the last page.
I did note there are some social insurance numbers on pages 11 and 12.
I resubmitted with the ones that covered it up.
There is one that is covered up, but there is still a second SIN number on page 11 that is not covered up, as well as on page 12 in a separate section.
Okay. May I resubmit this package then, please? That is only going to take the last page out.
If that's all you want to be removed from the page is just the SIN number, then I can do that.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay, and then I will strike page 13 from
Yes,
reader insurance. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And you'll hear from us in due course.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, we'll take a 10-minute break.
So Madam Assessor, the chairperson has just called a short break. So we will resume the meeting at 10:17.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll resume the meeting. The next property on the docket is 348 Hargrave Street. And Kara, can you swear in the appellant?
Yes, I can. Mr. Applicant, for the record, can you please state your name? Thank you. And do you affirm the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we have 2 preliminary issues on this, liability to taxation and the classification of the property. And because of that, Mr. Habertermager, you'll have to make your presentation first. So if you want to go ahead.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
First, maybe? Oh, and we have another.
Yes, Michael.
I'll be presenting evidence on this particular case as well. So if you want to swear me in now, affirm.
Sure. Yep. So, Mr. Assessor, for the record, can you please state your name?
Michael Courtfriend.
And do you affirm the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then did you want to have the assessors read the file number and roll number on just before Mr. Tedeschi begins?
Victoria, for the record, can you read the roll number, file number, and address? She's muted.
Yes, I can. File number is 21-87. Roll number is 13052851000. Address is 348 Hargrave Street.
Thank you. You may proceed with your presentation.
Okay. First, I would like everyone for giving us this chance to present our case. I'm representing Eritrean community in Winnipeg, and we call it as a cultural center. Eritrea has 9 tribes. It's located in East Africa, north of Ethiopia. And
You probably have to speak directly into the mic.
Which ones? Yeah,
Actually, all of them should be over.
This one?
Yeah. There you go.
Okay, I will be close to it. So those 9 languages, they are already part of Canadian language because all those people are immigrated to Canada mainly because of war, including myself. Most of us were refugees. I was immigrated to Canada in 2002. So we want to give chance to the newcomers, and our office is located in downtown, and we provide the following services. Eritrean culture and language school, including English and French. We have French speakers, which immigrate from Djibouti, which is a French-speaking country, but their origin is Eritrean. They have been refugees because of war from Eritrea to Egypt. So we got this opportunity of French-based language. So what I want to say is we are multilingual. And we participate in the Winnipeg Proclama. We show our culture, our food, and our dressing or our dances. And those are mosaic of Canada. They are not anymore of Eritrea because the name Eritrea is it's only a name. We have Eritrean Women's Association, which they gather for different occasions, for baby spurs, or funerals, or any events, and we give them support. We participate also with Manitoba Creative, provincial government, and those programs, they give us fund, and we hire high school students, and we give them opportunity to get the first job in their lifetime. Similarly, we participate with Canada Summer Job, and that is federal program, and the fund is mainly for college and university students, and we give them opportunity to teach in our institution. And we celebrate different holidays of Eritrea. On the first part, I have put one of the reports of our Eritrean Cultural and Language program, and it shows in a pie chart the age group and
the gender category.
And that's on page 20, page 1?
Page 4. On my document, it says page 4.
Page 1. Okay, thanks.
So, yeah, we teach children. Our main focus is to not forget their language from whichever tribe they come, because we think that those are the resources of Canada. Tomorrow they will be going as a Canadian Red Cross, or they will go as a Canadian Air Force or Canadian military. So they are representing Canada in the future. And those are small kids who lives in downtown, who doesn't have opportunity. For example, myself, I live in southwest of Winnipeg. My kids, they don't go to that community or cultural center because they are well off and they are living a little bit higher standard. Those who are served, their parents, they don't have formal education and they are living in downtown. So we want to give them chance rather than distracting by other events around downtown to a positive environment. The content is more. We also develop for those children in leadership and employment. And we give also training to newcomers, workers, safety and health programs in their own language, because there are multiple languages and other departments, they can't give them. If somebody wants to be hired for a cleaning job, he has to be taught in his own language or in his home culture. And when they go to entry-level employment, they get a highlight what's expected from. And we ask for the city of Winnipeg to categorize us as an institution. Currently, we are as a business, and we want a tax exemption like any other sister companies in Winnipeg. I presented 2 companies or institutions. One is Punjab community in located King Edward, and the other one is St. Joseph Club on Main Street. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much. And you're still appealing the assessed value, correct?
The assessed value is, I don't know the technicality, sorry, but the assessed value is going to be, I think, part of the tax exemption.
Thank you. Victoria, any questions?
No, I don't.
Harvey?
I have no questions.
Excuse me.
Oh, sorry, Michael, I forgot about you being here. Any questions?
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Abed-Merriam. Quick question for you about the use of the office in question. You've given us a great overview of the Eritrean Community Center and what you do. How much of the programming described in your presentation happens at the office location?
For example, we have around 4,000 Eritrean origin in Winnipeg, and from those who have interest to come to the class of language school, they are between 15 and 20. And when we have a large number of attendees, especially during summer, we have around 85 kids coming to the program. And those 85 kids, we go to one of the schools in our area, like John Macdon in Benetine Street. We get it from Winnipeg School Division. We rent it for that session. But for the small events, their number is between 20 and 50. And the students, they show up 1 week and they didn't show up the next week, but average, they are between 15 and 20. And we use the office as a meeting place for small group. But if we have, if we are going to celebrate in one national holiday of Eritrea or of Canada, we always go to bigger halls around the city. And I give some examples on my writing. Did I answer the question?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Just some more clarification. So the office is used for small group meetings and the after school program?
It is used mainly for language teaching. We have 9 languages and all the teachers are volunteers, one part. The second part is after school program. If their number is small, they are taught doing their homework in that place. And during summer, we go out to read. But during September to June, we are in that building. And during summer, their numbers is very high. School is closed, so we rent big schools like the Gordon School or Jules McDonald's.
Okay. So the language programming that you offer at the location on Hargrave, is it scheduled classes or is it done on a drop-in basis?
They are in drop-in places. It is not a like a rated institutional teaching, but the teacher shows up regularly, but the students come and go their attendance, but the volunteer comes at the right time. If he is absent, he has to find a substitute. So that one is programmed on the teacher side, but on the student side, it is variable.
So you have a time and place for a drop-in program run by volunteers. Is there a set curriculum that happens during those hours that it's open?
We have a set curriculum because we have books from back home for those different languages. And those teachers are well-qualified teachers in back home. And we have a set written documents to follow page by page. And we have exercise books. And the program is well organized.
And is it open to anyone in the city of Winnipeg to come and take language courses, or is it available just to members of the Eritrean community group?
Yeah, we are part of the Manitoba Multicultural Program, and we have been working with them closely for so many years. And the question you mentioned was also a question from them, from federal government fund. And yes, we are multicultural and it is open. And if I want to give you some examples, our newcomers, they live in Manitoba housing, for example, and they bring their friends with them during that class. And can you teach me your language? And for our surprise, those our kids learn different language, and those new kids also from other ethnic group in Winnipeg, they learn also our language. So it is open, and we are obliged from our sponsors too.
So from September until, thank you, from September until June through the school year, the hours of operation are every day from 4 to 7. Is that correct?
Yes, it is after school, you are right, correct.
And it's drop-in courses on language following a curriculum, or is it like a drop in and do your homework with a tutor format?
Yeah, their question is multiple. So one kid can come as a after school program support, and some of the kids, their parents, they go for evening cleaning job, so they drop their kids over there until they do their daily work, and some of them they come there to teach another small kids by the supervision of adult teacher. So it is not specific, it is multi-task. And those kids also, they eat dinner at the place, because the dinner is a potluck. Every family, they bring their own dish. And as I mentioned, those who are well off, we also bring once a month or once a week a dish of rice or any food. And the kids, they share meal. They don't have to feel hungry or to go to rush to their home. And there is also subsidy from different organizations like United Way in Winnipeg, and they give us a meal. There is a Manitoba nutrition program. They give us fund. We buy the milk and other fruits to couple it with a potluck program.
Okay, thank you. And just to get some clarity, the actual school, do you run the cultural language programs or the cultural school language program in the school, the local schools all year or just during the summer months?
The language school is runs during summer school. And because during summer, we have a lot of students because school is closed. But at the same time, during school year, some students, as I mentioned before, between 15 and 20, they come there to learn their language, how to write, how to speak, how to dress up. So it's not a black and white. Summer job is done on this schedule, and after school program is on this schedule.
Okay. And just one last two questions. One related to the Folklorama programming that you participate in. Does it happen at the Hargrave address?
Yes, the dancing happens at the Hargrave address because their number is the dancers. They are very small number. So it happens, the training, the dressing, and the chiropractic, it happens at the Hargrave.
So you actually entertain Folklorama guests at the location on Hargrave?
No,
okay.
It is only as a preparation for training, because most of the dancers, they were born or raised in Canada. But when we go to showcase for public, as I mentioned, we use it as there is a coalition of different multiple African countries. They rent a hall and we show our event by program during that 1 week. So that 1 week is done in a rented with a coalition of African countries, but the practice happens throughout the year when there is a holiday or something at the office.
Okay, that's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Harvey, any questions?
Yeah, first you indicated that there's 9 different Eritrean languages, and are all those languages taught at the school?
Yeah, we teach about 5 of them.
5 of them?
Yeah.
And if somebody were to come in, would be volunteers capable of speaking any one of those 5 that you teach?
Yeah, they are run by volunteers.
No, I'm just saying, so Eritreans would speak 5 of those languages, all 5 of them? Yeah, an individual?
For example, myself, I speak only 2 out of the 9.
So what I'm saying is, so if somebody were to come in as a drop-in and there's a volunteer there,
yeah,
would the volunteer be capable of teaching the language of a drop-in was going to look?
Yeah, we make sure that that language is covered If not, because the tribes are, some of them are, they are large, some of them are small, and some of them, they didn't immigrate yet to Canada. Maybe one kid might show up with different language, then we search, Mr. X is from this tribe and he's looking, then we make sure somebody is volunteer to cover.
My second question is, you've used a lot of examples of nonprofit organizations that do receive some tax exemptions at the end of your brief. And I'm wondering, have you yourself calculated what you expect the portion of your taxes that you receive that should be exempt, and what they are?
Yeah.
So what are you seeking?
Yeah, they are tax exempt.
So I'm asking, what are you seeking an exemption on? What portion?
On the property tax, it says
All property taxes are a portion.
all of it.
All of them.
Yeah. But if there is portion, I would accept also portion.
Well, I'm just saying because there's certainly some of the things that are done are not necessarily tax exempt. So I'm wondering what that is. Like, I would like to know what you're seeking.
Yeah, what I'm seeking is I put on the front page 209,000.
Yes.
And I divide the building as at the main floor a convenience store and second floor our office. So I split the taxation by 209,000. I'm the expert on the calculation of city property calculation.
So you want it reduced by, is it half?
Yeah, half of the property, you're right. Because the main floor is a convenience store.
Yeah, I see that. There's rules are still there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Lori?
I have no questions, thank you.
So if I get back to page 1 of your brief, you've got an assessed value of 209,000 for what? The second floor?
Yeah, that's my calculation. The property is assessed 480. Then I divide it into 2.
So you're not having any issue with the total value?
Well, I don't have any issue with the convenience store, which is half of it on the bottom. But what we are asking is on the upper one, which is half of it.
So, but they total of 418,000 on your chart.
Yeah, 418 is assessed from where I get from the City of Winnipeg website.
Okay, thank you. That's the only question I have. Michael or Victoria, who wants to go first? Okay, Michael, you're on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As we just sort of explored, it would appear from the submission that was made by the applicant that quantum is less of a concern than the class and liability split. We have, the City of Winnipeg did receive an application from the Eritrean community in Winnipeg requesting consideration for property tax exemption. They do not occupy the entire building, so it would only apply to a portion of the building, and we did conduct a full review. The evidence that was submitted with our stuff, our documents relating to the classification liability review, I believe is a separate package from the evaluation brief. And I'll navigate through sort of our rationale and reasoning for where we're at today with our position on the classification and liability. So if you've got that in front of you, I'll start on page 2 of that submission, just to give you some context. As been identified, when it comes to the classification liability, the onus falls to the applicant in these cases. They do occupy, they are a tenant in a multi-tenanted building. And we understand they've been there for some time. Occupancy permits for their space were only just resolved, according to the records we received from Planning, Property and Development, as recently as 2017. And the approved occupancy for the space in question is an office with a maximum capacity load or occupancy load of 30 people. In the material that was submitted to us, there was an awful lot of reference to the tutoring and the language school programming, and which we did take into consideration. One of the other things we look at, because we are looking, when we look to the Municipal Assessment Act, we're looking to qualify both the organization and the space that they occupy and the activities that take place there. One of the things that does open up some sections of the Act is whether they're a registered charity. In this case, the Eritrean Community Winnipeg Inc. is not listed as a charitable organization with the Canada Revenue Agency, although they are registered as a non-profit organization. So it's just to give you context, the case commonly known as WASO Inc. versus the City of Winnipeg Assessor, referenced to paragraph 6 on my page 2, is what extends the right for an exemption or the eligibility for an exemption to a tenant occupying a portion of a building, where they've equated tenancy and the leasehold rights to ownership as interpreted in the language of the Act. So the application we originally received was for an exemption under section 22 of the Act, which is a full exemption. The reference section was related to places of worship and the operation of cemeteries, which obviously is not applicable in this case. And the city actually, we did a review of section 22 and we actually rejected the application under that request. Subsequent to that rejected application, we've had discussions with the organization and did seek clarification around how they use the space and looked at possible exemptions under section 23(1)(d), referenced in paragraph 8 at the bottom of page 2, which essentially is a college or seminary of learning. And there are some guidelines or a framework for deciding if an organization qualifies as seminary learning that the courts have put out. And we'll talk about that in a moment. And at the top of page 3, the other section of the Act that we looked to based on the other properties that were referenced in the applicant's brief on page 10, we looked at section 23(1)(I), which is the community association service club operating a community hall or community center. So the questions that we were trying to answer in our review was, first of all, does the Eritrean community in Winnipeg qualify as a community association service club or a public body that serves the local community? We also looked to answer the question if the tutoring that's offered by the organization at this location qualify under the accepted definition of a seminary of learning. And then, of course, does the premise at 348 Hargrave Street qualify as a community hall or community center as contemplated in the Municipal Assessment Act? So the first thing we do is we qualify the organization. And if you look at the bottom of page 3, starting at paragraph 10, there's a whole bunch of review and rationale as to what we did in reviewing the organization itself. There's a lot of information there. The crux of it at paragraph 17 on page 5 is that based on all of that review, that we did consider the Eritrean community of Winnipeg to be a service club or community association as accepted in the eyes of the law and within the scheme of the Municipal Assessment Act. And that is evident in the fact that we have not treated the Eritrean community of Winnipeg Inc. as a business per se. We have treated them as a nonprofit organization. We have exempted them from business assessment or business taxes. They have a business assessment, but they are exempt. And it's all on the premise that they're a nonprofit organization. So it isn't enough, however, in the eyes of the real property exemptions for a nonprofit organization to automatically qualify for a real property exemption. So the next item that we looked at was, does this education programming qualify as a seminary learning? And the by and far, the court case that has set sort of the standard or the stage is referenced on page 6, paragraph 18. It's the Winnipeg City Assessor versus the Law Society of Manitoba. And it really summarizes 6 key points. The place has to be a place of education. The stated objectives of the institution, the objectives of the students, and the centrality of the educational aspects of the institution must all be considered. And we've interpreted this as it really has to be steeped in the objectives and mission of the organization, that education is what they're doing. Although bullet number 3 on the middle of that page, it says that it doesn't have to be the primary purpose or primary, as long as it's educative. The real crux of it is bullet 6 at the bottom of page 6, where to be a bona fide school, there has to be students, a physical facility, teachers or instructors, and a curriculum designed to further the advancement in life of those in attendance or relevant. So the concerns that we ran into with the programming described is we understood that some of it, if not a lot of it, took place outside of the location at 348 Hargrave. And the programming that did take place at 348 Hargrave was as discussed today, on a drop-in basis. And we weren't certain that there was a prescribed curriculum. And we weren't sure on the structure that might have been provided that we would be looking for when we're defining a seminary of learning. Page 7, paragraph 22, we understood, based on the information that we reviewed, that some of the educational programming took place at Winnipeg School Division schools, including some of the programming related to language and cultural school. And with this happening at other venues, we understood, although some of it happened at 348 Hargrave, that 348 Hargrave became more of an administrative location where they were administering programs from. And just like an office for a school board or an administrative office for a place of worship or a church denomination, they wouldn't fall squarely under eligibility for an exemption. So on those premises, the fact that we weren't certain or didn't understand that there was a formal curriculum and that some of the programming actually happened at other locations, we didn't see it falling squarely under what the courts have determined to be a seminary of learning, at least not at 348 Hargrave. On top of page 8, we also did a review of our understanding of community hall and community center, as would be described in section 23(1)(I). And there is a whole series of court cases on this as well. Some of this is old, but it is the best that we have when it comes to these types of spaces, community centers, and the understanding of what a community center is. And if you look at paragraph 28, the St. Norbert Nursery School versus the City of Winnipeg, on the matter of community centers, in that particular decision, the underlined section there, in the context of this subsection, it seems to be clearly intended that the service in question have general community availability and use, and that it be of a recreational or social nature. And the key piece there is it's open and available to the general public. And that's hence some of my questioning about who has access to the programming that's available at 348 Hargrave. It also, there's some other case law here just indicating that there has to be clear and convincing proof of sufficiently substantial public designation or dedication of the premise, meaning that is it available to the general public to rent for socials or events? Is it available for the general public to drop in and use? Is the programming a sort of an open door policy where anyone can attend? And that's consistent in the German Society of Winnipeg. I referenced to paragraph 30. And it also goes on in 31 in another case there where it's the use and availability of the building are important constituents in determining whether or not the facility is a community hall. And the true test identified in that particular case is whether it's ready and open availability to all. In a nutshell, the parcels referenced on page 10 of the applicant's brief, the Philippine Canadian Center of Manitoba, St. Joseph's Catholics Men's Club, the Punjab Cultural Center, and the Portuguese Association of Manitoba are all what we consider to be banquet meeting halls, all of a much larger size, and all with facilities that are available for the general public to use for the likes of socials and events. In at least two of the instances there, the taxable portion identified in those locations are related to licensed liquor facilities. So they are licensed to serve alcohol and to accommodate events. And these would be venues where you would have folklorama events or the like occurring at these locations. There are also other factors considered in some of these where we've got daycares operating at the facilities, and in one case we have actually a school operating there where they have a curriculum and they do entertain daily education programming with a curriculum. So in a really different or distinct from what we understood is happening at 348 Hargrave, and certainly the occupancy permit for the location at 348 Hargrave wouldn't be consistent with a social hall available for public use. And therefore we didn't see it falling squarely under that clause or that piece of the Municipal Assessment Act that would extend an exemption. So the summary I've got on page 9, just the confirmation at paragraph 35 that we do believe that they are a community association within that definition, that there's still this obligation that they fall squarely within the meaning of the exempting clause, that because education isn't listed as a mission statement or an objective of the organization, even though they offer some programming, it wasn't clear that there was curriculum, and it wasn't clear that programming was happening, scheduled programming was happening at the subject location. And then of course it's not a substantial enough premise to fall under what's been understood as a community hall or community center. So for those reasons, we really didn't see a spot within the Municipal Assessment Act where the activities happening at the 348 Hargrave fell or became eligible under the Act for an exemption. I'll take any questions.
Happens now?
Yeah. My question is, we can provide the curriculum if you give us enough time. And regarding the Canada Revenue Agency non-profit registration, it is not a requirement to run in non-profit as long as you are registered in Manitoba as a non-profit. But if the city required us to bring that, we can also register for CRA number for non-profit.
Thank you for that remark. The comments I made related to registered charity with the Canada Revenue Agency pertain specifically to a section of the Act, Section 23, references registered charities as being eligible for certain exemptions under that section. So it's not a necessity. It wouldn't be something that we would ask you to go through. It just gives us another series of possible exemptions to consider if you are. That particular section, I don't know, would be applicable to the events or activity taking place at 348 Hargrave. So I'm not sure that it would make much of a change in terms of our understanding on the matter today.
How about the curriculum you mentioned? Can we submit the curriculum?
Certainly, if we have scheduled programming with curriculum, I mean, that's something that as we continue to review and understand what the courts mean by seminary of learning, it is certainly something that we can take into consideration.
I don't have other questions.
Thank you. Harvey?
No questions.
Lori?
I just have a really general question, sort of just for my own self. The applicant cited organizations which in his mind were similar and got a school tax exemption, the Philippine Association, Punjab Center, and the Portuguese. There must be many, many organizations with missions and visions similar to this organization that don't receive a school tax exemption. Can you just name like a couple?
I wouldn't know. There probably are lots. Because again, it's that two-pronged, it's the organization, it's the activities that they are doing, and it's the location. It's sort of a three-legged stool. Off the top of my head, I did not research organizations that wouldn't necessarily have an exemption, but there are all kinds of non-profit organizations who are tenants in various strip malls and locations, office buildings downtown, who do not qualify because it's an administrative function. They do not qualify for an exemption under the Municipal Assessment Act.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, and I have no questions. Victoria, I guess you're on.
All right, thank you. So for the valuation, under dispute, we have the assessment for 348 Hargrave Street for the year 2022, using a reference date of April 1st, 2018, the assessed value of $418,000. The parcel used for this property is a commercial retail store. We have received income and expense mailers. On page 3, I have some comparable rents of properties in the area that were renting between $11 to $21.49. And on page 4, I have an overall income breakdown of the premises. The main floor, second floor, and the basement, for a potential rent of $36,183, with a 6% vacancy loss, 2% expenses, $6.50 per square foot for shortfall, overall capitalization rate of 7.65%, with an overall rounded estimated value of $418,000. We have capitalization rates summarized in a chart on page 6 for retail with studies from City of Winnipeg, Colliers, CBRE, and Cushman and Wakefield, ranging between 5.4 to even to 9.4 for cap rate. Excerpts of the Municipal Assessment Act for page 7. Page 8, 9, and 10 are pictures of the exterior of the property. And then page 11, 13, all the way to 14 is the income and expense mailer of the property. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have one question for Mike.
For Mike? Okay, well, any questions of Victoria?
I don't know.
No? Harvey? Lori?
No.
And I have no questions, so you can ask Mike your question.
Michael, you mentioned during your assessment you focus on 3 points, and I got the activity, location. What was the third one?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
During your assessment, there are 3 points.
Right.
And I got the two of them. One is activity, second one is location. What is the third one?
So it's the organization itself, and whether they help us identify what exemptions might be available under the Municipal Assessment Act. It's the functions, what's happening at the location, and then it's the location itself, the premise itself.
Okay. I get it. Thank you, Mike.
Any other questions?
I don't have any.
Just, Mr. Chair, if I can make one comment before we leave the matter in your capable hands.
Sure.
There was reference in the materials submitted showing a 50-50 split in the assessment value for the two different interests at that location. If you'll note in the valuation material submitted by Victoria, it wouldn't work out to an exact 50-50 split in the value based on the premise area we've allocated to the Eritrean community in Winnipeg. It would actually work out to, if we use the parameters as discussed or presented by Victoria, the area or the allocation of value to the second floor space occupied would be $175,000, with the balance of the $418,000 for the rest of the building.
So you're saying the second floor, 117,000?
175.
Sorry.
That's using the same parameter. That's if you look at the income workup in Victoria's presentation, and you look just at the premise that we've allocated or that we understand to be the Eritrean community, and run it through that same series of calculations. It's not a 50-50 split in the value. So I just wanted to put that before the board.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So that's administrative though, that's not, doesn't affect us, our assessment for the building. It's the assessment for the building, how it's split between the parties is something that they have to determine among themselves.
Absolutely. The division of taxes payable by the different parties within the building is something administered by the property owner. But if the board is considering how, because allocation of class and liability can occur, and the only information before the board today in terms of allocation of class and liability is the information provided on page 1 of the applicant's brief. I just wanted to give you some context as to technically how that number will. Yeah.
Okay, Harvey?
No, that's my question.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the matter. Thank you, everyone. And you'll have our answer in due course.
The next applicant is via Zoom. Would you like me to admit that applicant now? Okay.
I think that's it for me.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Hi there, good morning.
Morning. The next property on the docket is 984 Sargent Avenue, and there are no preliminary issues, Victoria?
Yes, I just wanted to verify the value under dispute for file number 21-92, roll number 1301203600000 for the year 2022 for the address 984 Sargent Avenue. We have a board order for the property back in 2021, ordering the value for 335,000. From the previous application, but the application from the current applicant is disputing the value at 504,000.
Let me just go through these orders.
It's gonna be in assessor brief 2.
Yep, it'll be under item 2 for the assessor brief, page 2 and 3.
So for 2022, the value under appeal is 335.
That's how I understand it.
The penalty was applied. The penalty was applied. So the notice that the owner received would have read 504,000.
But in the rolls, 335. It was a 2020 appeal.
It's still showing.
So for 2021, it would be a federal rule, but this is a 2022.
That is correct.
So the deferral would be processed. So wouldn't this be 335?
I'm not sure. We might ask if he is not any other information. Thank you for the information.
Okay, if I can just speak to Michael and Victoria, do you have any information to clarify the value on the 2022 appeal?
The value that will be in the 2022 assessment roll is as ordered by the board on September 24th, 2020. The reduction from 504 to 335 was ordered by the board, but with the deferral penalty. So the change in assessment value from 504 to 335 was deferred, and it will show up in the 2022 assessment roll.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. As ordered by this panel, or this board revision. Yep. Yep. Not this specific panel, but yeah, the board revision.
We'll call a 5-minute recess. Sorry, Trevor. We're going to resume the meeting. And Ms. Alago, we're going to swear you in.
Okay. So, Madam Applicant, for the record, can you please state your name?
Imelda Elago.
Sorry about that. And do you affirm that the evidence you will provide today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is Michael there? Michael, the board has kind of discussed this, and we just want the confirmation that this appeal for 2022 should be at 335 as the roll.
So, sorry, I'm getting some delayed feedback in the audio here. Your question was confirmation that 335 is on the roll for 2022?
Yes.
Oh, I'm getting it in the loop again.
Oh.
Do you have a YouTube player going?
No.
Oh, that's.
Hang on. Weird. Okay, I think I got it sorted out. Yes, I can confirm that 335,000 is going to indeed be on the roll for 2022, as ordered by the board.
Are you prepared to make a recommendation to that effect?
We would absolutely be honoring the board's ordered value.
So then you're leaving it in our hands.
Well, so the decision by the boards to reduce it to 335,000 was based on the applicant's evidence at that time. The evidence and calculation of value that we have on record still remains pointing to the 504. But out of an abundance of respect for the decision made, only a year ago, we would honor that ordered value of 335.
So you're still not prepared to make a recommendation?
Well, the challenge we have, Mr. Chair, is that the property is currently being renovated, and there is a substantial amount of renovation and construction going on at that location. And by January of 2022, it is our understanding that the physical condition of that property is going to be very different than it was at the time of your decision in September of last year. So much so that we're probably looking at changing the property use code and probably revisiting the way the premises have been developed and valued. So there is more than likely going to be a 14.2 supplemental or a 340, 341 supplemental adjustment that's going to supersede anything discussed today.
Okay, fair enough. We'll proceed with Victoria's evidence. Just a sec. Well, her information shows 504. The brief.
It's just that they haven't inspected or anything, just premising that.
But Victoria's brief.
So they could fix it all on a supplement.
Well, they will at some point. Victoria, maybe just quickly go through your brief.
Sure. So the brief I am presenting, there are 3 items. First item is the previous assessor's brief for the appeal back in 2020 for the assessment when the assessment was under appeal and back for 2021 at 504. Sorry, 504,000. And we have just very briefly on page 3, there's rent comparables. Page 4 is the income workup for the overall property capitalization, and then you keep going. There's on page 16 to 16 is the exterior photos and aerial photos of the property, and then on page 17 is the is the signed income and expense mailer received. I mean, not received, but has been signed off by the owner, the previous owner, which was granted as evident. The deferral was granted based off of that. Item 2 is the application from the previous owner, represented by an agent. And then we have item 2, page 2, the board of revision order for the property. So the deferral was granted, but there was a change in assessed value from 504,000 down to 335,000. And the following page, page 4, is how they develop based off the applicant evidence of how they concluded the estimated value of 335,000 for the property. And then there's some more evidence from the applicant. Item 3 is just supplementary evidence. We have the permit for the property. Currently declared construction value of 35,000. It appears to be, if you look at page 2, there is significant renovations from what it was previously as a restaurant. Now, we can see that there's going to be different partitioning, office space on both the main floor and the second floor. We received pictures from the applicant provided on September 28, 2021. You can see the exterior from page 4 onwards, and significant interior renovations are undergoing from page 5 onwards. So you can see there's partitioning, there's, from what I can see, reinforcement for some load-bearing walls, re-insulation, new flooring, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Alago, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
You don't, Harvey?
So as is already indicated by Squirt Friend, there will probably be a supplemental tax assessment issued before the 2022 taxes are payable.
Depending on, we're under the understanding that from speaking to the applicant that the property is under construction and they're hoping to finish the construction by the end of this year. So when the construction is done, we will be revisiting the property for its use and its condition. So there will likely be a supplemental assessment notice for 2022 if it's complete by then.
So I'm just sort of wondering what we're doing here today, because what we're looking at and what is going to be taxable are two different things. Right now, it's not finished, so we're basically where the board was a year ago, and maybe something more to consider, but it's not time to consider it yet. So I'm just sort of wondering what we're doing here today.
The applicant filed an appeal.
Yeah, based on an assessed value of 504,000, not 335.
Well, and we've heard that. Right?
Yeah,
So,
no, I'm just wondering. Yeah.
So I'm actually looking to just for consideration on the value for this year's since the property is under renovation and there's nothing going on. I mean, no operations, no income coming in, and it is assessed at 504,000. So
but you've appealed the 2022 roll?
it's actually, so the 2022 role, as far as I understand it, is for the restaurant category, and since it will be by then, and it won't be a restaurant anymore, So there will be another evaluation that has to be made after the construction. And so I know it will be changed. It won't be the same for 2022, considering if we will be submitting the completion report. But for this year, I'm talking about the property tax payment for this year, which is based on 504,000. Yeah, so that's the burden I have right now. And since there was no operation, I was just thinking if there is a possibility of considering the tax burden for this year to be reduced.
So based on your presentation, I think you just went through that.
Yeah.
Okay, Victoria, do you have any questions?
No, I do not have any questions.
Thank you. Harvey?
Having questions.
Lori?
I'm good, thank you.
Just one question, Victoria. When a building is undergoing substantial renovations, does the department make any interim adjustments for that?
If there is changes to the property, and it's been a significant long-term change, like ongoing process, then there is an interim adjustment. But we're talking about in terms of years, usually.
Okay, thank you. Unless anybody has anything else to add, this will conclude this hearing. Thank you very much, everyone.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey? Sure.
So Victoria, we're just going to take a 5-minute recess to get the room ready for our next applicant.
Alrighty, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll reconvene the meeting. The last property on the docket is 800 Pembina Highway. And Victoria, I understand there's a preliminary issue of non-cooperation.
Yes, I have. So file number 21-248, file number is 1201051750 for 800 Pembina Highway. As you can see on pages 11 and 12, we have 2 registered mail sent to 800 Pembina Highway, and this is the tracking, and we did not receive a income and expense mailer response for the 2017 year.
So just to clarify, you sent the same mailer out twice?
No. Well, there's two names sent, but this for 2 different names, but sent to the same mailing address. So for Jed's Restaurant Limited, and the other one is a numbered company, but
So they're both in the same premises?
Yes.
Okay, Trevor, do you have any questions?
Can I swear him in first?
Me?
Can I swear him in first?
Oh, sorry.
That's fine. Mr. Applicant, for the record, can you state your name?
Trevor Smith.
Do you affirm the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I do have some questions. Just looking at the documentation included in the city's brief there, I see that there are 2 questionnaires that are sent out. One to Jed's Restaurant Limited, And the other two, the numbered company, 623-2256 Manitoba Inc. Only one of those is the registered owner of the property. That is the numbered company. Why are there two? Why is there a questionnaire sent to Jeds?
I'm not too sure.
Okay. So in looking at the information, so they're both sent to the same address. Just to clarify, so the numbered, so that everybody's clear, the numbered company 623-2256 Manitoba Inc. is the beneficial owner of the property, and the Jed's Restaurant Limited is the non-arm's length tenant. They're both owned and operated by the same people. So Jed's is the operator of the restaurant at that location. So it's a wholly non-arm's length situation. Looking again at the submission, so we have a single page at the back that's shown as being blank. Do we know which questionnaire this was for? Was this for the numbered company or for Jeds?
The INE questionnaire. In conserving the paper, I only printed out the one. I only copied the one INE. But I think it's for the numbered company that I have copied into the brief.
Okay. I guess related to that. So, if you were to receive an INE questionnaire from Jeds, would that be entered in under the numbered company, or would it be entered in separately under Jeds? Like they're not the beneficial owner of the property. I'm just wondering how that would be tracked in your system.
I'm not too sure. I believe that there have been other years where the numbered company has submitted INEs from what I've seen, and it was just we only got the one response, and so it was there's no double. If you're thinking if there's going to be a doubling of entry, we have not received that. But I'm just going to make a point that for both mailers, there was no response for either of them.
Okay, you're confident of that it was not received?
Yes, for the response for the income and expense mailer, yes.
Okay, those are all of my questions. I do have rebuttal evidence that was submitted today, but if the panel has questions,
Just
of course.
gonna go through the panel first. Harvey, any questions? Lori.
Just a quick one. On page 2, it indicates that they responded 1 year with the income information, correct?
Yes, the prior year.
Yeah, so they responded once, not the next year.
Yes, but we're using the 2017 mailers for developing the overall model, and that's the most pertinent questionnaire. And we're basing off of our non-co-op, based off of the mailers, responses received in 2018 for the 2017 year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I just have one question on page 18 on the tenant verification form. Both property owners are, I assume, on the title because they're listed as such on that form.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, that was my only question. Okay, Trevor, if you want to submit.
Yes. So I'm just now sending the rebuttal to the assessors, and if the panel opens the folder, you should see 3 new documents in there, which are Mr. Smith's rebuttal.
I've got it.
1, 2, and 3 in the order that you emailed them, Trevor.
Okay,
Do you remember?
thank you. I don't. Okay, I'll start. So I'm afraid I have not pulled title on the property, but it's my understanding and indication from the property owner, that being the numbered company, that that is the only owner of the property, 623 2256 Manitoba Inc., which is their family trust for the property owner, who is also the operator of the restaurant on site. Jed's Restaurant Limited operates the restaurant out of that location, but they are not an owner of the property. So I'm confused as to why there would be 2 questionnaires that would be sent out. And indeed, I don't know how that's tracked on the city's end. In talking with the owner that submitted information for the property, I guess they've always been receiving 2, so they just fill one out and send it back into the city. Now, they've indicated that they've completed their forms every year that they've received them. I'm not entirely sure of the numbering of the documents that I sent in as rebuttal today, but one of those documents, perhaps the 3rd one, I think, indicates a list of their returns from the numbered company.
That's the photograph.
That's the photograph? Okay. Has everybody got that? So if you look at that list of their returns, you can see that they've diligently completed their returns and sent them in as shown on the list from 2011 through 2016. And then again, 2020 is indicated as having been received. Now, it's my understanding from the owner that all of the other years were completed as well and were sent in, that being 17, 18, and 19. Now, to that end, and again, I'm not sure which document number it is that has been sent, what it's numbered in your file there, but I did provide today their submission for the 2018 year, which was sent in on April 15th of 2019. You can see the submission there, showing the information for that year. It's signed by Donata Christensen. That's one of the owners of the family trust, Christian Christensen being the other, I gather. So when we look at the city's list of received questionnaires, it indicates that the 2018 year was not received, when very clearly it was sent in and should be in their system. So I don't know what the tracking issue is there. I would suggest perhaps there might be an issue where you have 2 questionnaires going out to the same property. That's perhaps it isn't isn't tracked properly. I do not know what occurs obviously inside the city system as to how they would accurately track that. But we can definitively show that one of the years that they're saying they did not receive the information for, the information was completed and sent in. So it appears as though there can be errors made on the city end. And I would suggest that that's probably the case for the year in question too, that being the 2017 year end to be submitted in April, May of 2018. Now, unfortunately, the owner doesn't necessarily have a copy of every year that they send in, but they were of course able to locate the 2018 year rather, sent in 2019, to give you an indication that they do indeed complete these as suggested. And if you look back over their history, they've always sent in their forms, and it's there in 2020 again afterwards. So why would they suddenly break from completing the forms for a 3-year period and not submit them? It's possible that it was completed under the JEDS form versus the numbered company. Again, the owner wasn't sure which one was completed that year, but they, as they've indicated, complete it, send it back in, and that's kind of the end of it for them. So my indication is that they did send it in. It appears that there is the potential that it wasn't tracked properly on the city's end, and that's basically all of the information that I have for you.
Thank you. Victoria, any questions?
How does the owner send in their information? Through mail, through email, through logging into the client through the client portal?
I'm not sure if it's they didn't really indicate how they send it in. If you look at the list, it may indicate whether they sent it in the portal in prior years. But I think in looking at the year that we submitted the PDF for 2019, it looks like they've completed it in written form. So they would either have to send that in by mail, drop it off in person, or perhaps email it. But I don't have a concrete answer for you on that.
Are these originals or copies of the income and expense mailers that the owner sent in?
Well, the owner would have had to keep a copy for themselves, I gather, and then scan that PDF and forward that on to me.
The only reason why I'm asking is because I don't see the city received notice on any of the copies.
Right, and that would be consistent with that list of income and expense years received, where the city is showing that they didn't receive it, and yet it was sent in.
Okay, no more questions.
Thank you. Harvey?
No questions.
Lori?
No questions, thank you.
I'm looking at this submission by the photo with the mailer tracking system, I gather, and this is more for Victoria. If you look at the second, third, and fourth for 800 Pembina, it says not sent. Does that mean for 2017, 18, and 19, the mailer was never sent to them?
No, there are sent. I would have to defer to Michael.
Okay, Michael.
So that would indicate that we haven't received anything for processing. So it is very plausible that an owner has filled out a mailer and has it marked as complete, but if it's never found its way to us, and as Victoria indicated, we would have documents date stamped with the day we receive it, because timing is of the essence and these dates are important. We would have record of having received that PDF. I'm not in the system right now where I can dig in and see if we have copies of the 17 or 19 mailers. But based on the screenshot that's being provided, I would suggest that we probably don't have copies as shared with us today. So,
well, I think I can understand that, but when I'm looking at this, there's no mail receive date for these 3 mailers, which is fine. But any one that was sent has a mailer receive date. So does that give me the illusion that these mailers were never initially sent?
No, I think the evidence provided by the applicant in this case clearly shows that the owners received those requests. They were definitely mailed out. The not sent piece is an indication to us that we haven't received something for processing.
Okay, I guess I'm a bit confused because when I see the column right next to the row here and the following column about mail received, I understand if you don't receive the mail, there's no date, right? I don't know, it just seems odd.
I would have to dig into the system and find out. I mean, our status, that's our internal status sorting. And again, the evidence presented by Mr. Smith clearly shows that the owners received the mailers and that they were indeed mailed out. And as a matter of fact, even he's given us an example where they were addressed, one to the numbered company and one to the lessee. And that, just to that point, it would seem, based on the way it shows up on the tenant verification form, that for whatever reason, Jed's has been listed in our system as a beneficial lessee, which means that they would be privy to receiving copies of correspondence that went out. So there's likely a duplication of assessment notices and a duplication of tax bills as well. And that is something I believe that's requested by the customer. So that might provide some explanation as to how that's been happening.
Okay, that's all my questions. So we'll take a 5-minute recess. We'll resume the meeting. The board has taken into account the request for the burden of proof to be placed on the applicant for non-cooperation, and our ruling on the matter is that we have denied that request. So the assessor, you may proceed.
All right, thank you. The role area under dispute is 2022, with a reference date of April 1st, 2018. The assessed value of $2,477,000. This is a standalone restaurant with ample parking. If you go to the second page, we have the subject sale history back in April 2011, a sworn value of 1.1 million. I believe this is a related sale. So I don't think this is too relevant to our discussion. Page 3, I have some rent comparables for this property. I would like to point out that most of them are on Pembina. I did try to look for standalone restaurants, in particular comparable 2, 3, 4, and 5 are standalone restaurants with parking. However, I would like to point out that the second last comparable, oh sorry, not 4, 5. I meant comparable 2, 3, 7. Sorry, comparable 2, 3, 5, and 7 are standalone restaurants, similar to our subject. I would like to point out at comparable 6, or the second last comparable, this one's probably the most similar to our subject property, since there is a brewery in the restaurant. It's similar in size, it's inferior in that it has shared parking and has lower traffic and exposure. Another great comparable is comparable number 5, 762 Pembina Highway. That one is another standalone restaurant that's immediately right next to the subject property. It's right next door. Overall, the rent comparable ranges between $22 to $29. On page 4, we have the overall income and expense. The overall income stream. The potential rent of $197,343, based off of a rent of $24.46 a square foot. We're using a vacancy loss of 3%, expenses of 2%, and a shortfall of $750 per square foot. We're using an overall capitalization rate of 7.5%, and the overall estimated value rounded is $2,477,000. Page 6, you can see the overall capitalization rate table. Page 7, Municipal Assessment Act excerpts, and you can see from page 8 to page 10, we have some overall satellite images and view of the exterior of the restaurant that's been renovated, and there's, you can see that there is ample parking on the site, and that is my conclusion of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Trevor, any questions?
Yes, just a few if I could. I believe you had already mentioned the sale on page number 2 was between related parties. So that's not an indication of market value then?
They're related parties, so I would not consider it.
Okay, thank you. So just moving on then to the rent comparables on page number 3. The first comparable I note there, that's a relatively new development built in 2011 and onwards, is it not? In comparison to the subject property built in 1973?
Correct.
Okay. And for that particular property, that would be the Sushi Jet lease, would it not? In the strip mall that also has Boyd Auto Body, Five Guys, Shawarma Khan, Tim's, Mr. Lube, I think it is, a number of other tenancies. That's correct?
Yes. So it also has shared parking.
Okay, so that would be at the corner of, basically at the corner of Pembina and Bison, just ever so slightly to the north of that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Second comparable, 2005 Pembina Highway. This would be the former Earl's, now Lot 88 Steakhouse. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that lease I'm referring to is when it was Barley Brothers. It's a standalone restaurant, and it's in a very awkward location in itself. So
the location of that particular property, just south of Bishop Grandin, and I forget what the intersection, the lighted intersection there is, but McDonald's,
I think Chancellor Matheson, I believe. Yeah.
So that would be on the site that has McDonald's and Esso as well, I believe, by Bruce Stephen.
Yes.
Okay. 2065 Pembina Highway. So this would be Grant Park Shopping Center, and that would be the Applebee's lease, I'm assuming. Is that correct?
It's not Grand Park. This is the on Pembina Highway, so just
okay.
south of. That's fine. Just south of the Barley Brothers, where.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, my mistake. So that would be on the strip mall immediately south of Chancellor, where the Max and Kentucky Fried Chicken and all of the other tenancies are located there. I think there's a Yisk and just north of where the Safeway is. Is that the property
Yes.
we're looking at?
Correct, and again, shared parking over there too.
Okay, so it's a pad site on a major shopping center.
Okay.
560 Pembina Highway, that would be the shopping center that is at the juncture of Grant and Pembina, would it not?
Yes.
So, and we're likely looking at the Smitty's lease here, I imagine, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. 762 Pembina Highway. So as you mentioned, this is immediately adjacent to the subject property. This would be Pizza Hut that was in that location. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
And the city's aware that they vacated back in 2019 and it's been vacant ever since?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's vacant post-reference.
Yes. 1596 Ness Avenue. That would be the retail node immediately to the west of Polo Park Shopping Center on Ness. Is that correct?
Yes.
Where the Safeway is located, and I believe there's an office tower or two actually on site and various other retail.
Yes, and this is the One Great City Brewery, where there is a brewery in the restaurant. And from the look of the income and expense mailer, it looks like they're encompassing the entire area with one flat price per square foot rate.
I see. So again, that's located in a retail node with other supportive retail. Finally, 1715 Canisten. So this would be the Canadian Brew House, I believe. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and we're looking at a pad site in the power center at Canisten and McGilvery with, I can't think of all the restaurants that are there, but we're looking at Canadian Tire, trying to remember the other big box stores that are on that immediate site, but generally the entire area is power center, is it not?
General area, yes, but at the same time, it's not, from looking at the income expense mailer from the response it appears that it's not a pad site lease.
Okay, it is a standalone building by that water feature / drainage pond, is it not?
I am not too sure if there's a drainage feature, but it is a standalone building.
Okay. Those are all of my questions. Thank you very much. Thank you. Harvey?
I have no questions.
Gloria?
I have no questions either, thank you.
And I have no questions, so Trevor, you can proceed.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Just to start with, and it's hard to point this out as when you're asking questions, what I'm doing in going through all of that information is essentially showing that these are all for the most part national chains located either on shopping center properties or in conjunction with other supportive retail. So we're looking at Sushi Jet, Applebee's, Smitty's, Pizza Hut, Great Canadian Brew House, all national chains. Pizza Hut has gone dark. and they've been unable to rent that property since, immediately adjacent to the subject property. So lot 88 Steakhouse, I'm not sure whether that's a national chain or not. Typically with national chains, obviously they have a particular finish and image that they have to project. So that is a requirement of development for those properties, that they be built to their specific spec and image, which obviously drives the rent up for those tenancies. But even more so than that, they locate in locations where they have the best chance of success. They have entire teams devoted to studying traffic patterns, spending patterns, etc., within locations in order to determine where they want to locate. And typically they locate with supportive retail. So either on a pad site of a developed shopping center, or in conjunction with other supportive retail. So that's essentially the difference between what the city is showing as comparable restaurant leases versus what we feel would be appropriate to the city. So I'll leave that for the moment and move on to our report itself. So obviously we're dealing with 800 Pembina Highway. This is the former Round Table property. I'm sure we're all familiar with the Round Table in Winnipeg. They decided to change the restaurant format a number of years ago, and pardon me, it's now Brazen Hall Eatery and Brew Pub. I forget the specific title of the name, but that is the operating restaurant on site. Jed's is the owner of the Brazen Hall operation. So looking at my page number 3, we can just go through a couple of details fairly quickly here. You have the 2020 through 2022 assessment there, where you have a C3 commercial corridor zoning on Pembina Highway there. It is a freestanding restaurant all on its own. Built in 1973, obviously renovations have occurred since that time, but that is the age of the original structure. Site area, 56,000 plus square feet with a leasable area of 8,068 square feet. Now, the structure itself, wood frame construction, interior demising, they have a front seating area adjacent to the frontage and the entryway. There's a central bar area with tables and seating along both sides of it. Unisex bathroom at the back, commercial kitchen area. And then the wrinkle for the subject property is that they have a non-commercial finished area devoted to the brewery production, which is approximately 2,000 to 2,500 square feet. I attempted to get a floor plan from the property owners so that we could determine the specific size, but one was not available. That's the estimated range. We've gone with the low end of the range in our valuation for that portion of the building, so 2,000 square feet. It may or may not be 2,000 square feet, but it's certainly close to that area. The building itself, property owner has indicated that they've been told that they need to replace their roof at this point due to the poor condition of it. They have had a series of setbacks, as we'll get into, and the restaurant has not been performing particularly well, so they don't have the money available to do the roof replacement at this point in time. In addition to that, Their parking lot, while it is significant, it is deteriorating, and it does require resurfacing. Again, not capital that they have available to invest into the property. We can look at the photos beginning on page 4, a couple of exteriors. On page number 4, one from the frontage, you can see there's a patio, a glassed in patio area there. It's their indication that they haven't been able to use the patio very much. It was restricted for, and apologize, I forget the reason, but they weren't able to open it for a period of time, and COVID hit. Obviously, setback with that at the current time. Then we have some further pictures of the exterior, including the parking lot on page number 5, rear of the building, and we move on into the interiors on page 6. So that is the front seating area at the top of page 6. Bottom of page 6, we're looking back towards the central bar area, and you can see the side seating areas on page 7 there, including one private room. So I think, as I noted in my description there, the finish is commensurate with being an independently owned non-chain restaurant. So it's not really of the same standard as you would see with an Earl's or a Joey's or anything of that nature. Beyond that, page number 8, another picture of the bar area, I believe. And at the bottom, you can see where the brewery operation takes place within the structure. And obviously, this is non-commercial in nature. They can't obviously generate revenue from restaurant operations in this section of the restaurant. You're not going to seat people in here. It's not allowed, but it's not going to happen either. It is the brewery production section of the building. So yes, they serve the beer in the restaurant, but they also don't have a typical restaurant revenue being generated from that footprint. So we feel it's only proper that that particular segment of the building be separated out for a different income stream. Moving on, page number 9, site description. Location is everything really in retail, certainly for restaurants as well. The subject property is located immediately to the north of the Jubilee Emina Underpass. We'll call it Emina Underpass there, I guess it is. It's on the east side of Emina Highway. There's a couple of standalone office buildings just to the south of this. Then the underpass and the rail bridge and the car overpass at that point to the south. So moving south, there's no retail, supportive retail in that direction. To the north, you have the vacant former Pizza Hut, and then there's a small strip mall there's a small strip mall to the north. And there's what was a former car dealership, which is now Royal Sports, or I think it's Royal Sports, that's in the location just to the north of that. So local things in nature, not the same location from a retail perspective as a site on a shopping center or in a power center node or with other supported retail around it. I would point out that property is bordered on the east side by a rail corridor. There's essentially no residential area that this particular location would serve, being where it is there. So if you look at some of the other comparables that both I and the city have, obviously they're surrounded by residential, et cetera. This is a corridor which you would access heading north. In any case, site is shown on page number 9. The other thing to mention, obviously access egress is shown there. This particular location was heavily impacted by the redevelopment of that Pembina Highway underpass, which took place from 2016 through 2018, so a 3-year period. Access to the site was dramatically impacted and restricted during that time frame. Our indication from the owner is that their business, which was just ramping up, just getting started at that point, was dramatically impacted by this construction that was ongoing over a 3-year period. So it's important for a restaurant, obviously, to establish themselves in the beginning of their existence, and they were impacted by this construction quite negatively. So page number 10 obviously gives you the site. We've discussed that. I won't go through that in any more detail. And we can move on to the valuation itself. So what I've done in our valuation here is look at the restaurant itself and then separate out the brewery portion for a slightly reduced rental rate to be applicable to that section, and we'll get into that here. So let's look at the comparables that we have in place. Page number 13 are our restaurant comparables. The first one is simply a local restaurant on Corridon. 2015 lease at $23, considerably smaller at just over 2,000 square feet. What we're trying to do here is find examples of, as best we can, of standalone, non-chain restaurants to give you an accurate comparable for the subject, as well as being, if we can, in as close proximity and most close to the valuation date as we can. So our second comparable is the Larocca Restaurant. This is located downtown at 155 Smith Street. So that would be on the corner of Smith and the block south of St. Mary. 4,500 square feet, built in 2000, or their age was 2000. We have a lease from 2015 at $18 a square foot. So that's a local independent restaurant in the downtown, very well located, lots of parking surrounding it. Comparable number 3, I know it indicates 675 Weatherden, Unit 1. That is a very small strip located right at the corner of Grant and Pembina. That's where the hotel is with the vendor. There's a small strip with 2 or 3 units in front of that was developed in 2013. This was the lease of Woody's Barbecue. 5-year lease struck in 2015 for $17 per square foot. So certainly superior location to the subject, high visibility, good access, etc. But somewhat fairly comparable to the subject. I would note that they're only 3,500 square feet in size, so economies of scale. Typically, you're going to get a lower rental rate for a higher amount of space, all other things being equal. Comparable 4, 260 Hargrave. This is Tavern United. The lease was from 2010 at a rate of $20.36 a square foot, 6,000 plus square feet. It is connected to the MTS Center, obviously superior location. driving greater rent. Number 5, 1150 Grant. We have a lease from 2015. This is Applebee's, and that is on the Grant Park Shopping Center. So as you can see, 5,800 square feet. We have a national chain restaurant sitting on a larger commercial shopping center. They're paying the rent accordingly at $25.25 per square foot. Number 6, Toad in the Hole Restaurant, local institution, really, 4,000 plus square feet, 2015 lease, struck in 2015 for 3.5 years at $19.39 a square foot. That's right in the heart of Osborne Village, surrounded by residential. Number 7, 1500 Pembina Highway. This, I feel, is an excellent comparable. This is 8,350 square feet, as you can see, originally built in 1980 versus the subject being built in 73. 5-year lease struck in 2017 at $15.38 a square foot. Now, this is a national chain, Tony Roma's. That is a renewal on site there. Certainly has been there for some time. It's surrounded by residential and is on the Pembina Strip to the south of the Jubilee interchange by quite a ways. Number 8, this is another national chain. This is the Keg. Again, located downtown at 115 Gary Street. We probably all know where the Keg is there. 8,700 square feet roughly, 10-year lease at $15.22 a square foot. Then we have the Clay Oven at the Ballpark, struck in 2013 at $17.36 a square foot. Another local restaurant, but they have a number of them. That's 5,500 square feet. And then finally, we have Sydney's Fine Dining, which I don't believe is operating anymore, which was at the Forks Market at a rent of $12 a square foot beginning in 2015. So looking at our restaurant comparables here, we're trying to give you local comparables as best we can, or others that give you good evidence of what an appropriate rental rate would be. I think when you look at the renewal of national chains such as Tony Roma's at 1,500 Pembina, also on Pembina, in 2017 at $15.38, that gives you a good indication of what rent would be applicable to the subject. Similar size, similar age, very close to the valuation date. We have Woody's Barbecue, also on Pembina, $17 a square foot. You get the general idea here. So our range of rental rates I'm going to skip Sydney's, they're not operating now, but generally we're from that $15 a square foot up to the very high end of $25.25 for a national chain on the Grant Park Shopping Center. So that is our summary of restaurant rents. At this point, I'll indicate we've applied a rate of $17 a square foot to the restaurant portion of the subject property. So let's move on from there to the brewery portion of the property. We feel that as they're not going to generate typical restaurant revenues from this section, and in most cases, you know, a brewery will be located in a more industrial area or industrial unit, and you get a rent that would be applicable to that. So looking at our rents here, I'll focus on perhaps the first two. We have Torque Brewing as the first one, located at 830 King Edward. This is an industrial property. However, Torque Brewing does have an associated tasting room and restaurant portion of that that's associated with that. Their rent is $6.66 for 15,000+ square feet, starting in 2016. 830 King Edward is, in the St. James industrial area, just north of Polo Park there. Second one, 1290 Canisten, 2016 lease for 10+ years, originally built in '89, fully renovated in very recent years to make it more of a showroom retail type of location. It is located, if you're familiar with that stretch of Canisten where the Mercedes dealership is, and there's two Birchwood dealerships that are located just to the north of this property. So that's the property we're looking at, just to the north of the Canisten McGilvery retail node. 15,000+ square feet. That's TransCanada Brewing. Again, they have a restaurant and tasting room, as well as the brewery section in that particular unit. So they're getting $12 per square foot for everything, including the restaurant at the location. So those are the two that I would stress for you. Beyond that, we've given you some industrial rents for appropriately sized units in decent buildings in good locations, giving you rents in that range of $6 to $9.50 roughly. Looking at the subject property, and in particular our first two comps, we felt that an $8 per square foot rental rate would be most appropriate. If you look at TransCanada Brewing and that location versus the subject property's location, they're getting $12 inclusive of the restaurant portion of that building. I think $8 for the brewery portion of this building is more than appropriate. So that's summed up on page 14. Giving us our potential rent of $119,156 for an average rental rate of $14.70 a square foot. We'll move through the rest of this relatively quickly. I have not applied a vacancy rate to the subject property. It is owner occupied. However, obviously there is significant vacancy that can occur in restaurants, so we're not saying that there will be no vacancy at any time, but we, in our valuation, have elected to go with 0% vacancy for the subject property, while recognizing that the restaurant industry is very volatile and there is frequently vacancy, as indicated by Pizza Hut immediately adjacent. I am not going to go into any detail on our expense allowance. I've expressed this numerous times to all panel members here, including Mr. McIntyre quite recently. Suffice it to say, we're looking for the reinstitution of the 5%, what was termed management expense, in addition to the 2% structural allowance that the City of Winnipeg formerly followed in all prior assessment cycles. Following the Appraisal Institute of Canada guidelines as far as developing net operating income, if you look at my page 15, you can see that operating expenses paid by the landlord are intended to be deducted from net operating income. I've listed what those typical costs are that are borne by the landlord and aren't able to be paid by the tenants. On page 15 and 16, these are all standard operating costs that the landlord would incur in most situations. At my prior place of work, we did a 3-year historical review of properties from 2016 through 2018, including property counts of between 45 and 53. And you can see the results of our study there for these non-recoverable costs, ranging on average, 3-year average between 11.5% and 12.7%. We're simply asking for the reinstitution of the 5% in addition to the 2% for structural, which are not included in these costs. The shortfall allowance, we're deferring to the city's expense allowance on that. And we are actually in agreement with the city on the capitalization rate at 7.5% for the subject property. So capitalizing our net operating income at 7.5 gives us our market value of $1,478,000. So again, location is critical to retail and to restaurants in particular. We have a standalone, non-chain, locally owned restaurant, one of a kind. It doesn't have other locations. This is the sole operation. And I think our valuation model is certainly borne out by the evidence before you here today. So I'll leave it at that, and I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Victoria? Oh, she's muted.
Sorry, give me a moment. Okay, so just one or a few things. Are you aware of that there was after the local restaurant for comparable one, there was a new tenant operating in October 2016.
That's for 720 Corridon, is it?
Yes.
No, I'm afraid I wasn't. I didn't have that information.
Okay, so that as a newer lease, it rented out for $25.58. Also, in terms of number comparable 3, were you aware of Tandoori House's rental rate after Woody's no longer occupied it?
No, I'm afraid I'm not. I do know that it was re-tenanted with Tandoori House, but again, I didn't have that information available to me.
Okay, so we have it leased in February 2015 for $20 a square foot. From what I'm aware of, you selected comparable 6, 155 Osborne. I was wondering where you got the net rent for this particular one.
Wondering where I got it from.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been gathered in our general business practice. I can't specifically say. I don't recall where we gathered it.
That's fine. From what I understand, Totem the Whole owns that building. It's owner occupied.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
Yep. For comparable 7, 1500 Pemina, since it's been occupied by Tony Roma since 1988, are you aware that this may be a percentage rent involved?
Well, it's I suppose that's possible, but our indication was that the rental rate was $15.38, and that was a renewal of obviously their existing lease.
Okay.
So I can't speak to any percentage rent on that. We would have reviewed the information, and had we known there was anything like that, it probably would have been indicated, I believe.
Okay. Are you aware of comparable 8 at 115 Gary Street? The keg also has a percentage rent involved.
Yes, I believe that that one does have a percentage rent.
Okay. To your industrial comparables, comparable 1, 830 King Edward, Torque Brewing. Are you aware that there is no kitchen on site? There's no actual restaurant and full functioning kitchen for this property?
I've been on site there in that particular unit. I don't believe they have a fully operating kitchen, but they do have a significant seating area up front for as a tasting room associated with that unit.
But there is, do they have a large menu to serve and cater?
I don't believe they have a large menu, no.
Okay. Comparable to 1290 Canisten. I'm just only going to note from what I've noticed from our income and expense response, we have $14 for the triple net rent, not $12.
Is that a step?
No, it's not a step.
That's not a step. Well, perhaps that has changed since that time. I would suggest that if they signed a 10-year lease, there would probably be steps throughout that particular lease. Typically, a 10-year lease is not going to be struck at a single rate going forward.
Understood. Anyways, are you aware of that Brazen Hall has placed based off of your rebuttal evidence, that their book rent is $25 per square foot?
So again, that's a non-arm's length issue. They are free to charge themselves either $1 or $1 million. It's not indication of what market rental rate is.
And during the and with the operation of the brewery, are they able to sell their product?
Are they able to sell
the beer?
Yes, absolutely. They sell the beer on site. And as I indicated, the reason for breaking it out is that it's not a seating area. So essentially you're removing a typical revenue generating area as a restaurant from a standard restaurant footprint, which is why we've separated it out. We're not saying there's no rent on it. We're saying it's more applicable to our comparables number 1 and 2 for that section.
And you were able to determine, did you measure out the area for the brewery?
No, I think I was pretty clear about that. I requested a site plan, or rather a building plan, so we could determine the measurements of it. The indication from the owner was that it was between 2,000 and 2,500 square feet. I obviously viewed it, looked at it. That is not a hard and fast number by any means, but it would be in that vicinity. So we elected to go with the lower end of that range. I wish I had a solid number for you. That would be far preferable, but it's not dissimilar to what is indicated there.
Unfortunately, I did not submit additional plans or rebuttal evidence with the floor plans for this property, but I did remember seeing it was 1,200 square feet for the brewing portion.
Okay, and that's absolutely fine. So if you have that information, I'm happy to make that adjustment. So is it 1,200 square feet?
I believe so. From going through through the permits.
Okay, so if the panel is open to it, I'm happy to make that adjustment in my evaluation.
I guess my concern is you believe so, but are not quite sure.
Well, I'm willing to accept that in that the city does have the plans and she's reviewed it. So I'm fairly confident that Victoria has a more defendable number than I do.
Okay. We'll give you a couple minutes to make that adjustment.
Yeah, great, thank you. Okay, so based on that revised 1,200 square feet versus 2,000 and making the adjustment to the other area, our revised potential rental income is 132,756. Effective gross income being the same. Our expense allowance deduction is 9,293, giving us a net income of $123,463, capped at 7.5%, equals $1,646,000.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No further questions, thank you.
Thank you. Harvey?
Okay, so Smith, do customers of the restaurant have access to view where the beer is made?
No, they don't.
They don't? No. So having it on site, the only advantage to the restaurant owner is that he has the beer right there and doesn't have to ship it from an industrial site. See some expenses there, correct?
I suppose so, yes.
Yeah, and he's also on site for the restaurant. He can brew the beer at the same time, so he doesn't have to be in two places at once.
He doesn't have to be two places at once.
And would you agree, though, that he himself, on purpose, has taken this property and made it into an industrial use, whereas really it's zoned for a restaurant use? So he's chosen to not use the best use possible for that portion.
So it is of course still a restaurant, and that's the main purpose of it. But obviously there's different models within the restaurant industry. He's gone with a brew pub model, which is obviously come on more strongly in recent years across the country. So he's elected to take his business in that way. So yes, he's chosen to do that. All I'm indicating in that, and it is, you know, he does provide beer obviously to his own restaurant. All I'm indicating is that you're not generating a typical restaurant revenue from that portion of the building. Yes, he's developed his business in that way at his own doing, but I do believe that given the rent comparables that we have there for two other brew pubs, that's while assigning a higher rental rate to the restaurant and a lower one to that section, it kind of blends out and more closely resembles the rental rate that you see at, say, Trans-Canada Brewing, which is a more industrial location, although they are a restaurant pub as well. Thank you. Lori?
Just a little bit on that as well. So this is a brew pub concept, which I guess now with, you know, how things have changed in the last few years, requires the brewery and it requires a restaurant. So you've used two different rates. Could one exist without the other? Wouldn't be a brew pub.
Well, they would have to bring it in, right? They would have to have a separate unit somewhere, and it wouldn't be a brew pub where, as Mr. Diamond was suggesting, you can see the beer being brewed. In this case, that's not true. You can't watch it being brewed, and wouldn't be on site, so that would be a different entity, yes.
So if the owner were to sell it, would he, like, could you sell it as or is the brewery too small? I don't know, it's a question. Or could you sell the restaurant and then the brewery just sits there, or are they completely inextricably linked because it's a brew pub concept?
I think so. It was formerly the Round Table for decades and decades, of course. So that was a standard restaurant, a family restaurant with seating throughout, including this area. The restaurant industry is so particular. It would depend on who was buying it, right? If you had a national chain that was a brew house, they may not go in there into the same footprint and be able to use what they have and utilize that, right? Most restaurants wouldn't use the brewing portion. That would have to be stripped down and redone, of course, for traditional seating or kitchen use or what have you.
So does Brazen Halls, are they able to sell their beer or just use it in their own premises? Like, can they sell it to wherever you sell beer?
I believe they do sell it sell it to other locations as well.
Like to other restaurants?
I'm not sure about other restaurants, but I think that on a limited basis, they do provide it through the Liquor Commission.
Oh, okay. And do you know, you mentioned you can't view the brewery as you're eating. Can you take tours of the brewery because it's a brew pub?
No.
So it's literally closed off.
It is closed off. You don't see it from the exterior or interior.
And you can't tour it or anything like this?
No.
It's just there.
It's just there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Trevor, if you want to turn to page 9, the overhead view. It seems to have extensive frontage on Pembina Highway.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
And also, doesn't it have excess land on the southmost portion of the property? It seems rather large for an operation that's not that large.
Well, it's not a small site, but I wouldn't say that it has excess land. Typically, if you were looking at, we most often encounter excess land in industrial situations where it's clear that a portion that the site size is beyond what's needed for the operation of the building, and it's you could legally and there would be a market for separating land like that off. This has been here for decades and hasn't been developed with anything, so I don't know that that would add value in particular to the site, in that that's never been it's never been taken advantage of. And if you look to the north, we have the Pizza Hut property that once their lease was up and they left, remained vacant for quite a number of years here. So I don't know that the demand is there that would create an additional value to split that off. And that location that close to the underpass appears to be a detriment as well for development.
But certainly you'll agree that to the south of this property, there is an office building, at least one.
Yes, there's two to the south of that.
Yeah. Okay, that was my only question. I have no other questions. And that concludes this property. We have heard all the items scheduled and this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.